All right. Hello and welcome to our content creator chat, Kids Content and Canada's Media Landscape, presented by TELUS Storyhive and TELUS Wise. My name is Amanda, and I'm a senior program manager at TELUS, and I support the TELUS Wise program. TELUS Wise is a free digital literacy education program that offers informative workshops and resources to help people of all ages have a positive experience online. As a leading provider of smartphones and internet services, we are dedicated to ensuring the digital space is a safe space. TELUS Wise workshops and resources cover topics including protecting your online security, privacy, reputation, rising above cyberbullying, artificial intelligence, and using technology responsibly. As a mother myself, I'm looking forward to this discussion for key takeaways and insights that I can apply in my day to day life and content creation for TELUS Wise. Now, before we get started, I would like to acknowledge that I'm connecting from the traditional territories of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, and the Chippewa, and the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, which is now home to many First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. I am thankful for the opportunity to live and work on this land, and I acknowledge that TELUS's work spans many Indigenous territories and treaty areas. For those watching, I'd like to acknowledge the Indigenous territories and lands on which you are living and working. This evening, we are speaking with digital content creators from the TELUS Storyhive Voices program. They'll share their insights, experiences, and the vital role of educational, safe, and entertaining content for young viewers. We hope to get you inspired to apply for the Voices program. Applications are now open, and we want to help you shape a brighter future for young audiences in Canada's media landscape. This event is being recorded and will be available to view on TELUS Optik TV, Channel 9, and Storyhive's YouTube channel at a later date. A special thank you to Loose Lips Media for helping us produce this event today. And I'd also like to thank Lane and Lisa, who are joining our session to provide ASL interpretation. You will see them both on screen throughout the session. Now, I'd like to introduce you to our Storyhive panelists today. We have Anne, Marty, Mitchell, and Martha joining us for this discussion. First up, you can see Marty on the screen. Marty Chan is the creator of Storyhive Open Call Project, Word Wizards, with 23 published books for kids and 28 stage plays for adults. Marty has been working as a professional writer for over 40 years. His best-selling novel, Haunted Hospital, has just been translated to French, and his new novel, Cosplay Crime, comes out this spring. So welcome, Marty. Thank you. Up next, we have Anne Mueller. Anne Mueller is the creator of the Storyhive Voices project, Cooking with Kasara, and Anne Mueller is an educator, director, and artist residing in Edmonton, Alberta. And Anne worked on the Storyhive Voices project for 3 seasons and is currently directing a documentary for TELUS Storyhive. And Anne is also a member of ACTRA Alberta. So thank you for joining us, Anne. We will move over to Mitch. So Mitch George is the creator of the Storyhive Voices project, the Film Labs, with an interdisciplinary background of social work and filmmaking. Mitchell George possesses an innate zeal for storytelling and understanding the intricacies of the human journey. Mitch's goal is to create experiences that entertain, educate, and inspire young minds. Welcome, Mitch. And lastly, we have Martha. Martha Livingstone is the creator of Storyhive Voices project, Music with Martha Messmaker. Martha is a children's musical artist, also known as Martha Messmaker, and she is a vocalist, songwriter, multi-instrumentalist, educator and digital content creator with over 30 years of professional music experience. In 2022, she produced music with Martha Messmaker and friends for StoryHive Voices, and she's currently working on her third TELUS StoryHive project entitled The Adventure of Martha Messmaker. So thank you for being here, Martha, and a big thank you to all of the panelists. Looking forward to our discussion this evening. Now, for the audience, feel free to leave your questions for our panelists in the Q&A function of the Zoom webinar. So typically you can find them at the very bottom of your screen and you will see various icons and you should see Q&A. Feel free to put your questions in there and we will pose some of them to our panelists before the end of the show. Let's just take a look here. Let's get everyone warmed up and talking as we wait for those questions to come through. So we've got some project-specific questions to see what our panelists are up to. My first question is going to be for Marty. Marty, as a seasoned children's book author and playwright, what inspired you to bring your work from the page to the screen?
Thanks for that question. I like to use the word seasoned. Seasoned means super old, super old. So I have been writing for a very long time. I worked in theater, television, and radio, and kids books for the last 20 years. And what got me to switch over to start doing some stuff in sort of multimedia landscape is, well, to be honest with you, was the pandemic. It was the fact that a kid's author is often going into schools and libraries to promote their work. When the pandemic hit, the doors closed to outside visitors, and I, along with a whole bunch of other people who are doing school presentations, had to figure out a way to present. And that's where virtual came in, and it sort of excited my passion and my love for being able to do something differently. I love the idea of using sort of tech to try to connect with students. And it started off with Zoom calls or Google Meet. And then I started playing around with making YouTube videos, which offered writing tips to help kids become better writers. And it just sort of kept going from there and evolved into Word Wizards.
Great, thanks, Marty. I know myself, I checked out a few of your videos and I write a lot of content and definitely some tips that I took away even as an adult. So thank you for that. Our next question is for Mitch. So Mitch, your co-host is your niece. What inspired you to take this content creation journey together? And how did you include her in the process?
Thanks for that question. Uh, Anna is my niece, and she did a tremendous job when we were filming the film labs. But we have been creating content together for a very long time. We used to shoot little comedy skits together, and she was just a born natural in front of the camera, which really drew me to try to get her involved on bigger scale projects, not just little short films. And it was a great way for us to bond, but also to teach her skills about creating content. And when I look back at the film labs, it was the best summer I ever had. And she's got this shelf in her room that's like a memory shelf, and it's filled with the film labs hat and some of the props and Polaroids that we took while shooting, and it just makes my heart so full. And if you've ever seen any of the film labs content, we tried to include bloopers in all the episodes, just to really highlight the fun we had. Because at the end of the day, it was a way to bond and a way to create and bring her into my world.
That's great. Thank you so much for sharing. And I'm sure that, she'll have those great memories to look back on.
Mm-hmm.
Similarly, and I have the same question for you and your daughter. How did you include her in the process of making cooking with Kasara? And what parameters did you set to keep the experience fun and educational?
Thank you for your question. Kasara, yeah, she's my daughter. And before we came across the TELUS StoryHive grant opportunity, we were always cooking in the kitchen, and it was one of our favorite pastimes as a family. We would try out different recipes and just have a lot of fun with it and experiment a lot. And when this opportunity came up, I thought to myself, we love to watch cooking shows, and there's just not a lot of cooking shows that have children involved and as host. So I thought to myself, wouldn't it be fun if we did this together? And that's where the idea came about. And I involved her a lot by asking her which recipes she would like to include, because she's a child. So, of course, her recipes were mainly desserts. And so I would have to balance it off by having throw in some really healthy recipes, but a lot of the ones she chose were really fun. And yeah, just having her input on a children's series, I thought was really important, since she knows what children like to eat and what they like to make. So we had a lot of good laughs in between takes, and we took a lot of breaks to keep it fun and light and as enjoyable as possible. And it really was a fantastic experience.
That's great. I know that I saw one of the videos with my daughter, where she was making creme brulee. So my daughter's got this on her list now. She's like, "We've got the ramekins." I'm like, "Okay, the fire thing I'll hold off on. That's the last thing, but we will
Right.
definitely try that together." So, great. You mentioned your daughter loves sweet things and desserts, so it's ironic that it came up here. So that's great. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
Okay, our next question is for Martha. So Martha's whose delightful children's content series brings the joy of music to others. Martha, how do you ensure that your content not only entertains, but also educates children about the fundamentals of music in a fun and engaging way?
Well, my content is geared primarily towards preschool and kindergarten kids, and that age group has a very short attention span, but they also have to always have fun. So I use storytelling to engage their imaginations, and I switch a lot between different graphics, and I use a combination of animated, live action footage, and basically I just keep things really moving in a direction so that they're always kind of surprised and but the elements are tied together, in themes. And I also like to tie in, colors and counting and interesting facts about things such as animals and that relate to songs that we're singing or musical concepts that we're learning. And I also have other children come in as guest artists, as well as other musicians to help
Great.
in the storytelling.
Yeah, very colorful. Your videos and as well with the music, and the kids are so adorable. Let's open it up. A question for all. So what are you currently working on? And maybe I'll go in reverse order if that's okay with everyone. Thumbs up, that's good. Okay. Martha, what are you currently working on?
So I'm currently working on my second season of StoryHive Voices, and this is the adventures of Martha Messmaker. And one of the things that I'm doing in this series is I'm featuring specific locations around the Edmonton area. And for instance, I have the episode I'm working on right now is the Thistle Hill Farm Petting Zoo. So I take a visit to the farm, to the petting zoo, and there's actually things there like they have wallabies and they have emus there and they have different kind of non-traditional animals. So I'm visiting though, talking about those animals, tying it in with a song and a music concept as well. And yeah, so that's what I'm working on right now.
Love it. And tell us, we love our animals as well. So it's great to see nature woven into some of those things.
Well, kids
Um,
love animals, they love animals. So as soon as you can do a song about an animal, move
yeah,
like the animal, sing like the animal, you know.
yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Anne, what are you currently working on?
I'm currently working on the anniversary edition documentary, and it's called The Artist, A Creative Journey. And it is about the different modalities of art and the impact it has on the community. And there's a wonderful participants involved. Andrew Fung is the narrator. There's Tyler Shaw, Martin Kerr, Alexandra Jade, Tia G, and Paige Elson. And we follow them and learn about their creative process, some of the challenges they face, and just the ups and downs they have. And they share their stories. And it's a really beautiful process. I'm really enjoying it. I think it should be on TELUS by 2025.
Great. We'll definitely have to keep our eye out for that. Thanks for sharing, Anne. And then back to Marty. What are you currently working on?
Currently, I've got a couple of books coming up. One is called Cosplay Crime, set at an anime cosplay convention where a young girl has to find someone who has stolen a valuable souvenir, except the thief is cosplaying as a very popular anime character. So it makes her task a little tougher. And the thing that I'm really excited about is just sort of taking this whole notion of doing sort of broadcast videos and trying to incorporate it into sort of a live and interactive presentation for kids. So I'm taking I'm taking my word wizards on the road and doing everything in schools, well, virtually in schools, and sharing some of my tips and if you permit me like just one second to show off what I can do. So I can jump around and do sort of really fun, different things that get kids excited about writing. And so oftentimes what I will do is I'll do things like, well, actually, I can turn a pen into a lightsaber. All right, so I'm going to turn this pen into a lightsaber, right? So check this out. Here we go. Turning this pen into a lightsaber. Nah. Hold on here. I just got to concentrate. Hold on here. Turning this pen into a lightsaber. Now. This is weird. What's going on here?
I love it. I love it.
Everything's okay.
I need to incorporate that into my virtual meeting. So thank you for sharing that. Pretty cool. And then Mitchell, over to you. What are you currently working on?
Well, now I'm going to be working on how to bring a lightsaber into my scene, because that was really cool. We're just wrapping up with a show called Rental Rewind, which is an online game show. You might be able to see a small little robot arm right here. Contestants called in and controlled robots in our studio to participate in the game, allowing for anyone anywhere in the world to play. And really fun experience. It's not children's content, but what we are working on as well is a video game that supports community. And so we're just in the very early stages of developing that. So I'm hoping by this time next year, we'll have some type of beta out.
That's fantastic. All right. We'll keep moving on with the questions. Here is another one. And it'll be a question for all. So I'll start with Marty. I'm kind of just weave back and forth so I remember which order I'm going in. Why are you passionate about creating content for kids and youth?
Well, the thing that I love about creating stuff for kids is the fact that they are a lot of their experiences are first time experiences, and I like that notion of being part of that mix of sort of creating something that they see for the very first time. And I think back to sort of my childhood and those early experiences where I remember remember there was a troupe of actors who had come into our school, and they did a 3-person Macbeth, right? And it was a pretty, I mean, it's a school presentation, so they boiled it down to 45 minutes. But I remember how creative they were in terms of presenting it, and it still sticks in my mind some, 40 years later. And I wanted to be able to sort of create that moment for kids as well, where they go, "Oh, there's this guy who came in and talked about books, and now I'm in love with writing, or I'm in love with reading." I hate to say this, but I'm old enough that I've had some students that I talked to when they were in 6th grade, and they're now teaching 6th grade, and they are using my books because they remembered it from their childhood. So it's something that I love and something I hate at the same time, to know that I've had an impact, and also that time moves very quickly.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. But that must be incredible to, have someone at a young age in turn, as they get older, leverage your books and share it with the students in their class. So that's great. Mitchell, why are you passionate about creating content for kids and youth?
Yeah, I've got multiple reasons, but I just believe that everyone has a story. We have the right to tell stories and experience them. But there's this concept that I've just learned called create to serve, where I just believe that we need to create content that serves a purpose. And for me specifically, that's education, to bring value to what we're making, and having that long lasting impact. But also, I just love the idea of learning through play and being silly. And oftentimes, my wife considers me one of the children, because I'm always just being a giant kid, and I think it's really fun to just let loose, play for a little bit, and not take myself too seriously, and enjoy the process.
Great, thank you. And you touched on it perfectly. You took the words out of my mouth. I was going to say, what, sometimes as adults, we do take ourselves too seriously. So I love that you're having fun doing what you're doing. So that's fantastic. We'll move on to Anne. Why are you passionate about creating content for kids and youth?
Oh, I agree. It's a very fun process to work with children. I'm a teacher and I work with children every day. I've had a love for storytelling since as long as I can remember, when we did reading buddies when I was in grade 5, and I would read with a grade 2 student. I just love telling stories. And so I see film as very much the same, similar to teaching in that way. And I feel there's a need for a variety of programming for children and youth that are positive, safe, and uplifting. And so I feel really passionately about creating programs for youth that promote the love for learning. And so I think about the Alberta curriculum when I'm creating the program, and just thinking back to the shows that I used to watch, Sesame Street, Mr. Dress Up, The Muppets, all of those educational shows. I'm very inspired by those shows. When I created Cooking with Kasara, it has an element of literacy and numeracy and passing down of stories. So yeah, it's a wonderful process to work with children.
Absolutely. And you took me down memory lane. I think what was it? Today's special was another one, with
Yes.
Pokeroo. So yeah, that's great. Because they stay with us. We can still recall those moments, and those experiences we had. Martha, I'll pose the same question to you. Why are you passionate about creating content for kids and youth? Martha. Oh,
Sorry about that. My internet just got unstable there for a moment.
no worries.
Yeah, so you know what? I mean, everybody that I've just listened to, I mean, those are all of the reasons why I love working with children. I also, like, I'm a musician, by trade, but I started teaching children a number of decades ago, and found that the thing that I loved about children is that you can sing a song in any genre, and if the child likes it, they like it. Whereas, when you get into adults and things like that, they tend to be not quite so open-minded. So children are so open-minded. And that's the thing that I love about them. And they're also really honest. So if they like something, they'll tell you they like it. And if they don't like it, they'll tell you, which is great. And I love that about children. And also, I really believe that music has been a really big part of my life, my whole life, and I feel really blessed that I've been given a lot of opportunities. And creating to serve, that's a really good way of putting it, Mitch, because I truly believe that music does enrich people's lives. And so, my desire to share it with a bigger audience is, I feel like it's possible through digital media, whereas I can reach more kids. And also, it is also something that got inspired during the pandemic, which is very similar to Marty's story, where I was, we couldn't teach lessons in person. So all of a sudden, I started creating more digital content and realizing how much I loved it. And, puppets that I used in my classroom, I could now all of a sudden create a whole world around it, and characters and that kind of thing. So, but I think that working with children inspires me every day. Like every day I wake up and I'm really excited that I can, and I teach all ages. I also teach, youth and adults, and then I also still perform. But I will always love working with children. It's just like the thing that, just that play element, right? You can't.
And they're like little sponges too. So they just,
Yeah, and it's like it's just really inspiring. Like I get so inspired by working with kids, and the ideas that they come up with, it's like wow, it amazes me. So that's why I love creating kids content.
I love it. I do see that there's some questions coming through in the chat. So let's see if we can answer some of those. Let me just take a look here. Okay, the first question we have is from Christy, and it says, what would be your advice for someone who has a great idea for a project with their kid, but knowing the limited attention span or ability to concentrate for a kid creating content? I know if some of you have experience working with your niece or your daughter or other kids in general. So I'll just throw it out to the group. Is there someone who'd like to respond to this question? To take the first take at it?
Well, I could answer the question. Just like with teaching, I keep the lessons pretty short, just depending on their age. When I was teaching grade 1, I would keep the lessons to about 15 minutes for one lesson, and then we would switch over to a different activity. And for a little bit older, so for example, working with my daughter, who was 8 years old at the time, we would work for about maybe 25 minutes, and then we would take a break and then move on to the next scene after we had a good break and a snack. So just making sure to take frequent breaks and checking in on them and seeing how they're doing, making sure they have snacks and water and that they're having fun. And that's, I think, the best way to work with children, because you're right, they do have a shorter attention span and we have to be aware of that.
Great. I love it. Snacks. Snacks make me happy. Does anybody else want to top up on that, or should I move to the next? Oh, Mitchell, I see you got your hand.
Yeah, I agree with the taking the breaks. How we did it, I tried to make an environment that was comfortable. So when we were filming, I actually had a giant screen so Anna could see herself. She could see how she moved, where she was at. That made it a little bit more comfortable. And then, of course, we have to start with the snacks and then always get donuts afterwards. And you have to create this experience for them. And that's what the goal was every time we shot was a new experience, maybe a new restaurant we went to after shooting. And we broke shooting days into chunks. So, hey, maybe this Saturday we're just going to do the intro, nice and short, and then we'll go get something to eat, and then maybe tomorrow we'll flesh out the episode. So short, quick little shoots, just so they don't start to get bored of the process.
Can I follow up with a question for the two of them?
Yeah.
Because I'm fascinated with the idea of working with kids, but what happens when, for whatever reason, not the fault of the kid, but some tech element goes astray, and you have to get like a second take out of them. So how do you keep it fresh when they go, but I already did it, and you want me to do it again?
Great question. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I've definitely, Anna knows that take 55 is a thing. We did a lot of takes, but it's just taking it slow, and reminding her that every one of these takes is amazing, right? And just another safety. I'll add one more donut in, for every take, but. And you know what? Sometimes we didn't get the take we wanted, but it was like, you know what? You did your best today. That's fine. We'll revisit it another time.
Great.
I had like 4-year-olds 4 and 5-year-olds in one of my episodes. And, one of the things that I did is I just framed it differently. Now we're going to do it like this and pretend that this is happening, right? Because obviously with preschool kids, it's a little different. But, and then just listening to them, listening and paying attention. And when they're done, they're done. And then that's all, everything is good,
Great. Thank you. We'll take another question from the chat. This is coming from another Amanda. Nice name. All your projects sound really fantastic. What are everyone's thoughts on what type, topics, or themes of children's content might be missing from today's landscape? So I'll say that again. What are everyone's thoughts on what type, topics, themes of children's content might be missing from today's landscape? Or what type of kids' content would you want to see more of? So yeah, I guess the latest is, what do you think is missing out there in terms of topics and themes, or what would you like to see more of? So it's pretty open. Um, Anybody willing to take that question on?
I think that we need more educational content out there. I think the media is flooded with a lot of clickbait, a lot of content that isn't necessarily a great educational experience for kids, and I think we do need more of that. Uh, that's what I would like to see.
Yeah. And I'll top up on that. So as a TELUS Wise ambassador, I do go into a lot of schools and host workshops and work with youth and teach them about digital safety. And a lot of the time, they're coming across misinformation and, myself personally, critical thinking skills. I think because we can do so much online, we don't know if it's real or not, and sometimes we believe what we see to be true based on all the elements that we can use within content creation. Um, so, that's definitely one that stands out for me working with youth. Does anybody else want to address the question before we move to the next one? All right, it's like rolling the dice. What do we have next? Well, a question from David. How do you figure out the balance of being funny and silly with the main content to keep kids interested? How do you figure out the balance of being funny and silly with the main content to keep kids interested in your content? So
Oh,
how do you balance that?
I can take that one.
Perfect. Thanks, Marty.
I think one of the things that you always have to keep in mind is that when you're creating that experience for the students or the kids, you're creating a character, a persona that you're getting across, and whatever you're doing with your persona has to make sense at that moment. In the same way that when I write a book, right, not every chapter or every paragraph or every sentence has a gag or a joke in it. I still have to convey a story. So I think about the content in the same way that I think a story, that I have to get across a story. There are probably between 3 to 5 points that I want to hit. And how I hit them will vary depending on the group. And I'm doing this sort of in real time and live. But I also think about, I need to get across that story in whatever way that is appropriate to my character. And if my character is going to be silly at that moment, it's going to make sense. But if it's going to detract from the point that I'm making, I'm probably going to curve away from doing something silly at that particular moment if it's something that's important for the kid to retain. So I think you just sort of you think about it in the same way that you think about telling or writing a story, right? What are the important points that you want to get across, and where do you want to put the emphasis? And then from there, in between, you have the freedom to play or be silly, but keeping in mind that it has to be true to your character. Because I've seen some moments where somebody breaks character to do something that's completely goofy and silly and out of character, and as an audience member, I'm pulled out. And kids, as we've learned, are very honest. So I think they recognize those moments where you're not sincere.
Thanks for sharing that, Marty. Well, I'm going to throw out another question, and we'll go around and ask everyone for this. What tips do you have for viewers who are interested in creating content for kids and youth? Any tips that you would share in creating content, or someone getting started in the digital content creator field? And what I think I'll start with, if everyone's good, everyone's comfortable answering the question. Thumbs up. Okay, perfect. Then I'm going to mix it up a little bit to make sure that I'm on the ball. We're going to start with Mitchell this time. What tips do you have for folks creating content for kids?
I think it's exactly what Marty said there is be authentic, be true. Kids know when you're being somebody you're not, and when they're watching content that isn't authentic, it's easy to see. So when you're writing and creating this stuff, be true to yourself. And again, right, if you're creating to serve, know what it is that you're creating and what message you're sending.
Great. Thanks, Mitchell. Over to Martha now. We'll give you a moment to unmute. Perhaps while we wait for Martha.
I'm sorry, I'm at work here, and there's, I guess, a lot of people are on the internet right now. But it's that time of day. Well, the thing is, I think to start with something that you're really passionate about. Like my first series that I did for TELUS was on recycling, and I originally did a whole like three videos on recycling for kids, teaching them how to compost and that kind of thing, because that's something I am passionate about as well as music. And then I, incorporated some musical elements into it. But if you just start with something that you're interested in and you're passionate about, and then your ideas will just flow because it'll just be a natural progression.
Great. Thanks, Martha. Anne, what about yourself? Any tips?
Sure. I think a tip is just talking to children and asking them what is it that they enjoy watching, what kind of stories do they like, getting as much feedback from them as possible, going into classrooms and talking to them, seeing what they're reading, what they respond to, taking some notes, and coming up with an original idea just based on their feedback. Because if they're going to be the audience, I think it's really important to have their voice included in it.
Perfect. Thank you. And Marty, did you want to top up on that?
Yeah, I would probably echo what everybody has said, and on top of that, I would put the idea of doing your research. I do this when I write books or plays, right? You want to see what else is being done out there so that you're not replicating what somebody else is doing. Or if you're got an idea that's similar, you've got to figure out what your voice is in terms of how you approach a similar topic, so it becomes something that's unique to you, that only you could be the one that presents that. And I know sometimes people get disheartened when they do market research. They go, oh no, every idea has been done, I can't do it. But what makes a project truly unique is your voice and your passion, right? So when you combine those two things, anything that you create is going to find an audience. It's just a matter of just putting in the work to make sure that you've got something that is truly unique and something that's that hews to who you are.
Great. I love that. Authors can't even say the word, so I'll skip over it. It's too late. Authors, yeah, I'll leave it alone. All right.
Be real.
I do have. Pardon?
Authenticity.
I said, be real.
Yeah. Okay. That's a good way. It saves me my pronunciation issues. This question I'm going to direct at Martha, just specifically because I know that you're working with a lot of preschool and younger audiences. And how do you ensure that the content that you produce is age appropriate and aligns kind of with the developmental milestones of kids?
So I think the research piece that Marty just talked about is really important. And also, what Anne said about, talking to kids themselves too. Like when you're, if you're going to be doing kids content, I think that you really do need to be interacting with kids, like either have your own children or because it's organic, right? So even I find that, I've done a lot of research and I've taken a lot of courses on child development and, through the years. But it seems to me that kids are evolving too, and what they're exposed to. So, I remember in university them telling me that, oh, kids can't do that at that age. And then all of a sudden I try it with a class and they're all doing it. And I'm going, oh, wait a minute. So, you do your research, but you also, try, if you can, try some of your concepts with children and see how they respond to it. And look at things like fine motor skill development and speech development and those kinds of things. But Yeah, kids, they surprise me a lot with the things that they're capable of doing that, you know, I'm sure the nun finds that too, right? It's like, I'm just going to give you an example. So, I use triangles. You know, everybody knows what a triangle is, right? With toddlers. And my sister is also she's a music teacher in Calgary, but she doesn't teach young children. And she said, "Oh, they don't play triangles till grade 2." And I said, "Well, that's interesting because the kids in my toddler class are actually playing triangles." So,
Mhm.
it's about exposure, and it's about showing them, modeling with them, and creating an environment. So, kind of went on and on there, but
Great.
yeah.
Thank you
So
for that.
research, but also use your own experience, I guess.
Yeah, test it out to make sure it works well and that they can absorb the content. Okay, I'm going to have another question. I'm going to ask Anne this particular question mainly because she does have educator background, which you all do in some capacity or another, or disciplines. But TELUS Wise is very much about keeping people safe online and you know um, encouraging youth to be kind online and to intervene when they witness cyberbullying. How do you help teach kindness and empathy through your content?
Well, when I think of cooking with Kasara, I think about the relationships, and there's always modeling of kindness between Kasara and who she's learning from, whether it's a chef or a baker or just maybe a host. But their exchange, they're modeling that kindness. And as a teacher, we teach lessons on it in class about if you see something that is unkind, always think of it as if you wouldn't say it in person, then you shouldn't be saying it online. And that you're always responsible for those actions. So it's having those important conversations with your children as a teacher, and thinking about that as a creator as well, of showing those kind interactions at all times and incorporating those lessons into the content if possible.
Great, thank you. Yes, remember to always be kind online. It creates a ripple effect when we're kind to others. All right, we'll move on to some other questions. Let me just take a look here. Um, a question for all of you, and not everybody needs to answer. Someone can take it on. How do you feel that children's content contributes to the diversity of Canada's media landscape? Anyone have any thoughts on that?
I'll jump in.
Thanks, Marty.
I think it's one of those important things because if you're talking about audiences who are going to be watching or consuming content, we all start when we're young, right? So having stuff for kids just means that they're going to be aware of what's out there. And if you don't have stuff for kids, then what are they going to do, right? And I feel like sort of harkening back to an earlier question, it'd be cool to have more material that's appropriate for kids, but can also bring in their parents so that they can watch stuff together, right? That sort of, what do they call it? They used to call it the four quadrants, right? Something that could hit your different generations, so that everybody can enjoy themselves. And I try to do that with my books. I try to find something that if I know that a teacher, an adult is going to do a read aloud, that they're going to find something in there that they enjoy along with their kids. And I think if we have more material like that, number one, it allows the family unit to be working together or watching together, but it also encourages those conversations between parents. Because I don't want just something that I, I'm of a generation where maybe my parents plopped me in front of a TV and just had me watch TV as the TV as a babysitter. But I think we're sort of evolved to that point where we want that kind of content that encourages something that happens beyond the show, where we actually sit down and talk to each other about what we just experienced. And just hearing what everyone's talked about, like I can see those threads or those branches that go out that beyond just watching the experience. And I think if anybody's doing or coming up with ideas of content, I would definitely encourage them to think about how there are branches that go beyond just, hey, you're going to sit here and watch this show for 20 minutes, that you think about those activities or opportunities for the kids to be able to go, oh, let's do something with this. Like, let's cook, or let's find let's find something like a pot and pan and try to make our own music, right? Or let's try to make our own film using dad's iPhone, and then when we break it, we'll blame it on our little sister, right? So when you're thinking about those activities, I think it creates a much more dynamic experience. And I think it takes us away from that sort of old school thinking of a TV is just there for you to watch. We want to have something that's more interactive now.
Absolutely. I think that co-viewing is very helpful because when, the adult, the child, or that dynamic watch it together, they can use those experiences that they do online as a jumping off point to do things in our physical world. So I love that tip. I think Mitch, did you have your hand raised there, Mitchell? Did you want to top up on that?
Yeah, I just wanted to touch on it quick because, yeah, with the film labs, our goal was that it was for anyone, regardless of age or socioeconomic. We wanted to kind of foster that sense of inclusion and belonging with our audience. But like learning without barrier, it is what our biggest intention was, because the film labs is how to make content, what is a camera, how does a camera work, and what does a film set look like. And we were inspired by Bill Nye the Science Guy, who was like a staple in my childhood, because he was able to take science and deliver it in a way that was easy to digest. And so our intention was like, well, there's so much involved with a camera, with like the physics and the engineering of it. Like, how do we break this down for kids to understand, especially in a landscape where lots of kids don't want to be firefighters or police anymore. They want to be YouTubers and they want to be content creators. So how do we provide them the information on what's happening with this tech, and how do you create content with it?
Yeah, I love that. I also think from even the diversity, I think about when I was young, the type of folks or characters that I saw in children's content, where I think, just based on what I see now, I think we're getting there in terms of having a more accurate representation of what Canada looks like, and what youth are seeing, different types of blended families. Years ago, I think if you saw someone with a tattoo, you'd be like, "Oh my goodness!" But now, it's commonplace. So, kind of getting with the times, I'd say. I see that more and more if I think about the content that my daughter saw 16 years ago versus the stuff that's put out there. Um, I think what we do have a few questions in the Q&A panel, so I'm going to divert back to those. We'll see where we're at. One question is, from Christy, how do you schedule your content creation, acknowledging screen time limitations for kids? So like one thing, well, if you guys think about that, I know that, prior to the pandemic, the Canadian Pediatric Society used to have very strict guidelines on what they would recommend for kids under the age of 2 to 5, and then different variables from 5 and up. So I know that they've kind of because the pandemic, we don't want to feel like we've done harm to our children. I know that the positioning is now to focus more on the type of content, how you're consuming content, and what you're doing with that, as opposed to making sure it's educational and fun and nourishing versus depleting. But in the back of your mind, when you're creating content, do you think of how that might be perceived by a parent, like because they might be conscious of trying to reduce screen time? Any thoughts from that?
I have a short attention span, so I always keep my stuff short to
Okay.
begin with. So I use myself as the model. It's like, if you can get across your content or your story in 10 minutes, I mean, that's great, right? And if you can get across in 8 minutes, even better, right? Like, and I come from the world of writing where you have to be concise and sharp, and you want to get that point across and not worry about, oh, I've got to fill this out so that you don't want to have people just filling or padding things out simply because they want to reach a certain time limit of a show. If you've got something that works really well and a short form, especially for kids. I think that works a lot better. I know certainly now that I've been doing uh, virtual presentations, right? I max out at 40 minutes for an educational program, because I know that there's no way I, as an adult, would sit still and look at a screen for longer than 40 minutes. Well, I, as an adult, right now I'm already looking off to the side at my cat
Yeah.
and my dinner plans. But you do want to keep it something that is concise and sharp.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Marty. Does anyone else want to top up on that before we go to the next one? We have another question. What are you most proud of creating? So I think I'll just open that up to the group. I'll start with Martha.
Well, you know, I've done quite a few different episodes, right, for Storyhive, and I would say that if I think, you know, back, some of them I'm more proud of than others, just because of time constraints, really, and you know, maybe not having, is, you know, you have an idea in your mind about what you want to do, and then you go to do it and you realize that it's way more intensive than you thought. So you kind of have to scale it back. But I I think that like, so when you say what am I most proud of, would you say specifically
Like content that you've created, or a piece of work that you
like
put
one
up there?
what you're talking about?
So you cut out there for a bit. So what piece of work are you most proud of creating?
Like in terms of um well, I think I'm hmm, that's a really tough question. I have to actually think about that.
Think about it, and we can come back to you. I don't want to put anyone on the spot. Anne, did you want to go and respond to that?
Yes, for sure. I'm very proud of the entire series. I didn't think we could do it at first. I had never done it before, but when it was all brought together, I remember watching for the first time, and the credits were rolling and I was in tears because of all of the beautiful moments that were captured on screen. Just between the the beautiful places we went to visit, the generosity people had with their time and telling their stories and sharing their recipes that had been passed down through generations. It was uh, all the community members coming together and being so kind with my daughter Kasara. So it was this beautiful experience from the first episode to the very last episode. And it's hard for me to pinpoint exactly the best part, but I think just being able to invite so many people to come on the show and to see them in their element, uh, doing so many amazing things. And I remember some of the people that have watched the show said, wow, I didn't even realize that that person was working here and had this amazing cafe for so many years, or this diner, and they would go out and visit this place after watching the show. So just being able to highlight the people within the community that are so amazing and have these incredible stories to share was probably the most beautiful part for me.
Great, I love that. Thank you for sharing, Anne. Um, Mitchell, what about yourself?
I'm gonna say the film labs. That was something that I got to do with my family. And again, we as well brought on professionals. So the networking and getting Anna to be involved with that networking and to meet people in industry was so rewarding for her and for myself. And it was a challenge because the crew was me and my 12-year-old niece. And there were a lot of times when we had no idea how we were going to get some things done, and it it was a great bonding to be able to problem solve together and to collaborate. And yeah, like I said earlier in the introduction, I wouldn't trade it for the world. And in fact, I would go back to episode 1 and redo it all with her because the experience was that good.
Right. Awesome. Thank you for sharing. And Marty.
I'm trying to think of the best way to sum it up for me. I think the best way I can capture what I was most proud of is shortly after Word Wizards had come out, I had received a note from a grandmother who said that she used the writing prompts that I put forward, and I continue doing it on Twitter or X. Every week on Tuesdays, I put out a new story prompt, and she goes to my feed to grab those prompts so that her grandson can actually continue building stories week after week. And that's been going on. Like she doesn't do it every time, but I think she's checked in with me about 3 or 4 times over the last year to say, I love that prompt and we're coming up with a story. So knowing that something that I created actually had an impact on the audience that I was hoping to inspire, to me, that's pure joy for anybody who's a kid's content creator, to know that you actually had an impact on somebody, especially a kid. And to me, that'll be something that I'll dine on for the rest of my career.
Love it. Thank you for sharing.
Can I share something now? Can I share
Yeah,
something?
yeah, but we're going to come back to Martha.
So in my last series of Storyhive, I was able to bring in some different guests, and like one of the guests that I had was one of the moms that's actually had been bringing her daughter to one of my classes, and she told me that she played the bodhrán. And I thought, well, a lot of people don't know what the bodhrán is, and so I had her as a guest, and for her to share that instrument, and that we did a whole pirate theme around that, and so it was a lot of fun. And that particular episode stands out in my mind. But I think just the different guests that I've been able to bring on, and also the children, because the children that have been in the episodes, they're always asking me when they can come back and do it again. And I always think, and some of them are getting kind of older than preschool now, so I need a new group. But yeah, so I would say that that's it. It's the community building and the giving the people the opportunity to be part of something, that people that I work with every day, and some of them are teachers in our school and things like, music teachers and things. And so that's something I'm really proud of.
That's great. Thank you for sharing. Now, in case you've missed it, we've been putting in the content from our panelists in there. I highly encourage you to check them out. If you're a parent, watch them with your children, or share the resources. And I want to just thank Martha, Marty, and Mitchell for being here today, as well as Lisa and Lane. I want to thank everybody for joining us. Again, this recorded conversation will be available later on TELUS Optik TV, Channel 9, as well as Storyhive's YouTube channel. And remember, applications for Storyhive Voices close on March 20th. Storyhive's Voices is offering new and emerging digital content creators $10,000 in production funding, training, and a community of support to promote local video series. No experience is required. You can apply at storyhive.com/apply, and be sure to follow at Storyhive on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and X for updates on voices and other programming. And just like magic, it's in the chat there for folks watching to check it out. And then for those who joined us live today, we do have a post-event survey in the comments for you to fill out for a chance to win a $100 MasterCard gift certificate. And please let us know if you have any feedback for today's content creator chat and how we can improve these going forward. And again, yes, and the link for the surveys in the chat, please check it out. And provide your feedback for a chance to win and just to evolve how we do these Storyhive content creator chats. And again, thanks for joining us today, and a big thank you to all of our panelists and interpreters for being a part of today's session. Have a great rest of your evening, everyone, and thanks for joining us. Bye, everyone.